The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here with you on this lovely Wednesday morning in the end of September. You know I love Wednesdays because we start out with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here and she will be answering your questions live in just a few minutes. Then we move on to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have some really spectacular guests today, including Vin Di Bona, wonderful gentleman. You know that name because of America's Funniest Home Videos and a lot of other shows that he has been involved with that have really shaped how we look at television here in the United States. He'll be here talking with us. He has had a tremendous impact and been a huge, huge supporter of our kids and our families. So he's going to be here with us talking. And then we also have Grady Brown, a wonderful young man on the autism spectrum who's a speaker and is an ambassador for autism. So those people will all be with us in the second hour, but first we're going to be talking with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I always mention to you at the top of the show that this show is meant to be interactive. We look forward to your questions, your comments, your suggestions. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us here on the show. I'm going to remind you that if you go to www.autism-live.com, you will see the show playing live there right now, but there's also a box next to it, a white box. You have the opportunity to put your cursor there, type whatever you would like, hit enter, and it shows up magically in real time on my screen. And that way I can be asking your questions of a true visionary in the field of autism, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. So without further ado, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us in the studio right now, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And I'd like to remind everybody that you are a wonderful expert in the field of autism, having worked in this field for way many years than we really want to disclose. Than would be polite to discuss. No. But more than you can imagine. And as I always like to say, you are truly a visionary in the field of autism.
You're very kind. Thank you.
No, I'm very accurate because you have the ability to see that. We always talk about the fact that we're going to talk about autism from a 360-degree perspective because we think it's important.
Right.
But that really is how you see autism. You see our kids as whole individuals. You see the family as something that needs help. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done in the field and for seeing it that way.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure, Shannon. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, our parents love it, and our individuals who are on the spectrum who watch, and the teachers and the practitioners all appreciate being able to have access to ask you questions. Mm-hmm. We do have to say at the start of the show that you will not be giving child specific advice, nor will anyone on the show ever, because it's a disservice to the individuals we're talking about.
That's right. I mean, it's funny you say that because yesterday we were, Jonathan Tarbox and I, Dr. Tarbox and I are writing the card book right now, and yesterday we spent several hours on it, and this is very similar to that. It's like reading a book, what we do here. So it's kind of like we will be giving a lot of the general facts and direction of what you should be looking for as a parent or any of our listeners actually, but we can't really make sure that everything we say is going to apply to every child.
Sure.
So We just want our listeners to be aware of that.
But having said that, there's so much that's out there, so much information that we don't always get access to.
Sure.
That I'm always amazed at the things we'll ask a question and sometimes yourself or other doctors will say, oh, well, we know that this has to do with this, that, and the other thing, and it's mind-blowing the things that you guys know. So a thrill and a treat for us to have access to that. We want to get right started with some questions that came in through the night, and they're kind of related, so I'm going to read you both of them at the same time. The first one, for Dr. Doreen, my son is 5 years old. He constantly sings echolalia songs through his day. He will do this for automatic reinforcement, but the majority of the time it is to avoid a man. I love how specific you guys are getting and how much jargon you're using. It makes me very excited. The parent goes on to say, this is disrupting education and therapy to the point where the teachers are unable to access the kindergarten curriculum and the therapists are unable to get anywhere with him. Should I remove all electronics and instruments from his environment? iPad, TV, computer, keyboards, instruments. I love that my son loves music so much, but it is now becoming a distraction and I don't know what to do. He's amazing at playing by ear on the piano, and while I want to encourage his love of music, it is getting in the way. Help, what do I do? Now, also on the Facebook, we had a question that came in also about echolalia. Here's the question for Dr. Doreen. My son is 9 and has ASD. He does what we call video talk, and he does this constantly all day. It's delayed echolalia by definition, but he uses it both functionally and randomly. How do we get him to use his words and not video? So kind of related, but and I wanted to bring them both up because different circumstances, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, one who's doing songs, one who's doing, as they call it, delayed echolalia by definition. So what can we do to help these families, Dr. Granpeesheh?
So it's actually, they both, and this is a great example because the topography of the behavior, so how the behavior looks, is the same in both cases. It's some form of repeating of something that we hear, so echolalia of some form. But they're actually quite different, and how you deal with the two situations is quite different as well.
Great.
Because the second parent, the one that you read from Facebook, echolalia, in that case, the parent is telling us that it's basically, and that's the common type of echolalia you see, where a child will hear something on TV and then they'll be so intrigued by it, I guess, or it just makes sense to them somehow, so they keep repeating it, and sometimes it's in context and sometimes it's not. So the fact that sometimes it's in context, so like for instance, let's say, I don't know, some of our kids will repeat something that's like an interesting saying, you know, you got 2 birds with 1 stone or something like that, right? And it's because they heard it and at that time it was interesting, or it could be anything. It could be a statement out of a Disney film. A lot of our kids would just repeat lines. And the fascinating thing is that it just makes sense sometimes. When they say it, it's the perfect place to put it, you know? So that is a sign that the child's trying very hard to communicate.
Okay.
So generally, I wouldn't want to treat it as just any other type of meaningless echolalia. I would probably stop the child and try to tell the child how are some other ways we can say that, or, you know, repeat it in different ways and so on. Or alternatively, if it gets to the point where it's very, very time-consuming and the child is doing it all the time and it's becoming very, let's say, repetitive and extremely, you know, taking up a large part of the child's time of the day or life and so on, then I would really try to immediately replace it with some other type of behavior or direct the child to some appropriate conversation. Many years ago, when we were a little bit less advanced in ABA, let's say, you know, 30 years ago, one of the things we would do was just have the child do some other type of verbal activity that wouldn't allow, that's, you know, so what you're doing is having the child do a behavior that's incompatible with echolalia. And the only thing that would be is actually stuff like singing, saying the alphabet, something else, or forcing the child into some sort of appropriate social dialogue. So, you know, echolalia, pure echolalia, is sort of still classified under the heading of stereotypical repetitive behaviors or self-stimulatory behaviors, and we don't know a whole lot about them. So, so the way that they're dealt with is just essentially try to block, try to redirect, try to replace the behavior. Okay. In my mind, there's many different types of self-stimulatory behavior, and you can classify them. Sometimes kids do them just because they're trying to communicate, like this. Yeah. Sometimes they do them because they're anxious, so they will line up objects or do types of repetitive things that make them feel more in control. Sometimes kids do them because they're in pain. I mean, echolalia has its own purpose, or any kind of self-stimulatory behavior has its own purpose. Now, in the first case, the interesting thing was that mom said, I think there was a statement, I assume it's mom, but mom or dad, parent said, the child does this now to avoid something else.
Mands.
Yeah, to avoid manding. And manding means making requests. Right. So mands are, I want juice, or I want to go out, or those types of things. And they could be full sentence, or they could be just one word. They could be visual. It doesn't matter. Manding means basically requesting things. It could be spontaneous or not spontaneous. That means you could request something if it's right in front of you only, or it could be spontaneous where you request it even if it's not present visually, and so you recall it. I want, to go to Disneyland later, whatever. So, but if the child is specifically repeating songs or singing songs in order to avoid something else, then what did we just say? We just said the function is avoidance. So mom clarified that for us. Right. And if the echolalia has a function that is clear, then really it automatically splits off from all different other types of self-stimulatory behavior, right? Because with self-stimulatory behavior, we're not very clear on them, and scientifically, from a science research perspective, all self-stimulatory behavior is called automatically reinforced behavior. In other words, just by doing the behavior, there's a reinforcement built in. Right. Okay, which that's a whole different discussion for me. I mean, it's true though in the sense that, let's say, if you are anxious and you do a compulsive type of behavior like lining things up, it is reducing the anxiety. So it's internally automatically reinforcing just doing the behavior. Yeah. But if you're doing the behavior in order to avoid another thing, then the function is avoidance. Okay. And then you drop back to your knowledge of basic ABA, which is when a function of a behavior is avoidance, the treatment is do not allow the child to avoid the thing that they're trying to avoid, and rather give the child some other way of telling you that they'd like to avoid this. Okay. So in this case, that means that you would not allow, so even if the child is singing and so on, then you would, and they're not requesting because they are singing, then yeah, you probably want to reduce all the technology or other things that are leading to that, and or even you might even want to withdraw them whenever the child starts singing, so it becomes somewhat of a punitive type thing where, hey, response costs essentially. If you start singing when you're not supposed to, I'm going to remove these objects. Yeah. And then you might also want to make it easier for the child to mand, so that it's a very fluent and easy response that would take the place of singing. So that means like you could visually prompt a mand, or you could actually even vocally have the child imitate a request. Okay. And that way they won't drop down to doing something else in order to avoid it. Now that was kind of a complicated, long response, I apologize, but the two things, even though they're both echolalia or some form of self-stimulatory, they actually sounded pretty different.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And so what I want to get back to, though, is the mom's emotion in the first question about she loves the fact that he loves music so much. Yeah. But even if she takes away things for a period of time, it's not forever, right?
No, and you can also limit it to certain times of the day. Okay. So you could say, just like anything else, like our kids, we don't necessarily allow them to have access to computers all day long, but we will definitely want our kids to have access, or like a TV show. All of our kids will say, yes, you can watch TV from 6 to 7 tonight. That's it. Every night you can have TV from 6 to 7. Same thing here. So you could absolutely have a free period where your child can be engaged in musical activities, have all those things back, etc., etc. But a certain time of the day, you can also make it contingent upon certain behaviors. So like if you don't, if you do really well on your mans, then you can have your musical stuff for an hour today. So you can do all kinds of stuff. You don't have to eliminate music or this technology from the entire day.
I'm just guessing too that when they want that technology, we would make them manned for it appropriately without singing.
Definitely,
correct?
definitely.
Okay.
And in all cases, you'd want to be making sure that the child is manning appropriately. Yeah.
Okay, really interesting. We are going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions after these messages. Stick with us.
Hey guys, for the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the tasks that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim at the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I've finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro, I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is with us, and she is answering your questions in real time. All you have to do is go to www.autism-live.com. There is a box there where you can type in your questions, or you can go to Facebook. In both places, that is completely free. We're not asking for your personal information. It can be completely anonymous, but it is a wonderful way to have your questions answered by a true expert in the field of autism. So, Dr. Granpeesheh, we had a question that just came in on the live feature. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, I'd like to know how I can help my child age 6, currently mainstream with a shadow, does disruptive self-talk, singing, repeating random words in class. However, most of the time it's quiet and sitting nicely. It is that maybe we are not reinforcing enough the good behavior, or what best technique can we use to avoid it? Frequency variation, I think is what you're trying to say. There are frequency varies, excuse me. There are good days and bad days. She is high functioning. So, it seems to be that morning for the noises that kids are making one way or the other. We're getting a lot of questions about that.
Well, this is a pretty straightforward one, and all you would really, because what you're wanting your child to do instead is just to be quiet because they're in the classroom. So you just build that behavior. Okay. It's automatically incompatible with the singing or making noises. So you shape that up. So you start with how long of a period is she actually able to stay quiet, sit calmly and quietly, and that's your baseline. And then you will increase it every, let's say, 5 seconds and reward that, 10 seconds, reward that, and gradually increase it so it gets to whatever period of time that you want the child to be sitting quietly. And if they fail, and the instruction is just sit quietly and listen. And I would increase the things, or the contextual cues. So, like, for instance, or I should say the contextual distractions. So initially you might be practicing just sitting quietly in a room, and let's say the child's okay for 3 minutes, and that's your baseline. And then you start increasing that baseline 3-5 minutes, and I don't think that you want to really increase it past 10 minutes. I think if your child needs accommodations at school, you can also request that so that they actually allow the kids to get up and do something after every 10 minutes. But having said that, if your child gradually shapes up and is able to be calm and quiet for 10 minutes, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will also be able to sit calm and quiet in school, in a classroom. So you do want to start to gradually increase the contextual distractions that are in a classroom. So for instance, you might want to have classroom sounds tape recorded and just play them in the background while you're practicing sitting calmly with your child. You might want to have, a lot of people around, that sort of thing, just so that you are sure that your child can actually stay calm and pay attention. And of course, the more interesting the distraction is, like if the teacher perhaps could put the child in the front so that there's less distraction, if the teacher could, try to accommodate the child by getting the child to pay attention, certain cues, that would help a lot. Some of the things we've done in the past, we've also, like, for instance, had a sticker, let's say, on the board in the classroom, which is very benign, like, let's say, I don't know, a green circle or something, and that is the stimulus that, or anything, a color. And we'll say to the child, every time you see green, it's a reminder to pay attention to the teacher. And those types of things work very, very well with our kids. There's even watches that are on the watchminder, they're large ones, and they say, you can program them to every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, and it'll literally write on the watch. It's digital, and it'll just say, look at teacher, or pay attention, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different environmental cues, like the watch or colors or objects in the environment, that you can teach the child would be cues to pay attention.
Fascinating, because we are all tied to our smartphones now that have alarms that remind us to do this, that, or the other thing. Right. And why not have that for our kids? I didn't realize there were watches that did that.
And they've been around for ages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting. Okay, we've had another question that came in just now. Someone saying, my 16-year-old child is having a very difficult time with change. Her babysitter that she has had since she was a baby is moving about an hour away from our home. This sitter is also a close family member. Help, all in caps, with 2 exclamation points. She can't communicate her feelings to us.
How old?
16.
16-year-old?
16-year-old having a difficult time with change.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a huge time frame to have had a person. Okay.
Yes.
So first observation is that I think this is going to be more traumatic for the parent than the child. I remember my first sort of au pair, or nanny who helped with my first child. And after being here for a year and she left, I was like devastated. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this, And having been dependent on one person to help with everything for 16 years is massive. So the first thing I want to tell you as a parent is just don't be afraid, because it's not going to be as bad as you think. You'll be fine, and there's a lot of really, really competent people who can step in and help and take over. Sometimes just the fear of change paralyzes us to the point where we don't even want to pay attention to the fact that what we have is not necessarily the best.
Right.
So because we'd just rather avoid any change. So, don't worry, maybe the next person that comes into your child's life is going to be even better. You don't know, just wait and see. Second thing is, ideally, if there's any kind of overlap period, if you can hire someone who's the replacement and then try to do overlap with your child, that would be great, so that the two are there together, and that the old person, the person that she's known for a long time, gradually reduces time as the new person increases time. I would recommend that you have the new person go through our basic training on IBT. There's, you can pick and choose these modules on our Institute for Behavioral Training website. And the more the new person understands ABA, which really I think ABA is the language of autism, like, communicating with our kids. And the more they understand that, the better they'll get along with your 16-year-old, and the more your 16-year-old will feel understood. And so that's what I would really recommend, is that you just don't fear. You never know. Make sure the new person, give yourself plenty of time to interview people and try to find someone. I don't know where you live. And I assume the person you're looking for, like, I don't know, maybe a caretaker or something like that. There's a website called care.com, which has a lot of applicants. People just post their application and information there, and you can look there to get help.
She has sent some more information. She says this move is starting to affect her at school, and she also further wrote, I think it's the change that is bugging her the worst. Dad is home for her after school. So she does have dad there, but that they're seeing a change in school.
Yeah, and it's hard because sometimes our kids do become extremely connected to one person. And I have to tell you, whether it's now or later, sooner or later, your child would have to acclimate to other people and understand that there are going to be other people. It's a tough phase, but keep her busy. The more busy she is, if you can actually write out maybe 10-minute intervals. I'm sure that when dad's there, maybe he's busy with other things and not necessarily engaged with her as much. I don't really know, but try to think of the key characteristics of the caretaker that was with her, who was with her. Was this someone who talked a lot? Then that's what you're looking for. Is this someone who would do calming activities with her, and that's what you're looking for. But in general, if you can try to list the segments of time, 10-15 minute activities, I think it would be very helpful for your daughter to transition.
Absolutely.
But just think of it this way, transitioning, or being able to transition and behave with other people the same way, is a good thing. So what you're doing, which you're forced to do right now, but what you're doing is you are helping your daughter generalize and learn to deal with other people.
I don't know if this is true for all kids, but I know one of the things when Jem was really, and even now, sometimes he'll have difficulty accessing what emotion, although he tends to be better at it than I am now, because one of the things that we would do is when something was happening, we would language it for him when he was little and say, you're feeling sad, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling upset, or, you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling left out, whatever it is. And I think that really helped him because now he is able to language those things. But it really helped me too, to be able to say, because if he was in pain, I think when our children are in pain, it becomes an all-over pain for us.
Yes.
And for me to be able to say to him, what you're feeling is sad, and you're feeling sad because X, Y, and Z, and you're entitled to feel sad in that moment, it kind of calmed me and let me realize this isn't the end of the world.
Yes.
He's feeling sad, and while sad is not a pleasant thing, people don't die from feeling sad as a rule.
Right.
And so in that way, I think it helped both of us. Is that something, the
That's
languaging
so good.
things
That's such a great point you make, Shannon, and absolutely. I mean, helping our kids identify how they feel is a big deal. And I have to apologize because that's a whole different side of this question that I didn't respond to, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because there are a million things that you as a parent can do to help your child emotionally get through this. And one of the things is really just labeling it for your child, helping your child understand how they feel, and that feeling will not last forever, I suppose. And another thing is just, if you're worried about the emotional aspects of this for your child, then I would really... we're so blessed right now with technology. I would set up things like every, twice a week we will be doing Skype with her. And this is how you'll see her and talk to her. And you might want to initially start doing that even right now and do it every day, and then gradually reduce it and alternate, the times so that your child doesn't feel very deprived. And you should just, call the person frequently. Let your child know that they're still around, and when possible will visit, so that the child's not afraid of losing the person forever. But you have a really good point. I mean, there are so many things like that, like identifying for the child what they feel. That's very helpful to get through it.
Well, I didn't invent it. Your therapist gave that to us.
It's good.
But I just didn't know if it's something that we can do with all kids or whether it was specific to my son.
Absolutely.
But I did find it really helpful. We still do that because things happen in life that you don't have control over. I'm thinking about when my mom passed away last year, and trying to find the way to language that for myself, let alone my child. We're still talking about it on a daily basis. And of course, with our kids, I think a lot of times we have an expectation, it's going to come out in this way.
Right.
It never does.
Right.
It comes out in some weird, bizarre way that, and then we're able to think, okay, that's a reaction to this.
That's true.
That you would think if she was coming home and spending the time at home with this person, that's the moment that you would see the reaction, but instead she's having difficulty at school.
And it's often that anything that causes change just puts us in turmoil for a while, you know? And so the opposite of change being sort of stability or routine, those types of things will help. So if you have other routines that you can establish, every day at 5 o'clock we're going to go do this, whatever it is. Any type of routine, or like putting on a schedule that every Wednesday you're going to do Skype with this person. Those things will tend to make your child feel more safe.
They're coping mechanisms. They're things we would do for ourselves.
Exactly, right.
And so great to give them a set of coping skills as well.
Right.
Wonderful advice. We wish you the best of luck with that, and please let us know how that goes. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll continue to answer the questions that you guys have been writing in and having Dr. Granpeesheh give you her thoughts. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tacs, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us answering your questions in real time. We have all these questions piling in, but I want to start with one about giggling because they've written in several times. My son is 6 years old, diagnosed with autism. He has various stereotypical behaviors. For example, he wakes up very giggly in the mornings. He continues this behavior at school. Usually this inappropriate laughter diminishes throughout the day. I would like to know what technique to use to extinguish it in all settings. Any advice is greatly appreciated. I just have to say, don't you love it when they say, I want to extinguish this in all settings? I'm so proud of you guys.
I love the language that's coming in.
Yes.
Gosh, if it was my child, I'd probably want to know a little bit more about what's causing it. Giggling is not a very common type of behavior that would, in other words, the assumption we make as behaviorists is that the child is giggling in order to avoid other things or escape other things or so on, or it's just what we call, self-stimulatory or whatever. But I'd still want to know a little bit more about it because to me, I'd like to know some of the physiology of the child. I'd like to take a blood test. I'd like to see if the child has yeast issues. A lot of our kids that giggle for no reason, and especially when we're talking about it starts as soon as the child wakes up and it starts going down during the course of the day, you're not really avoiding anything when you wake up. And it's kind of like, okay, what's going on with the child? I'd want to look at some more, blood tests, some measures to see how the child's doing in terms of yeast, but also like sleep pattern perhaps, and I'm not sure, the diet of the child, sugar and certain types of food additives tend to make us a little bit more silly or are toxic to our kids. Those are things that I would look at before trying to stop the behavior altogether. And then, of course, from this email, I can't really tell what the function is.
Yeah.
I would have to identify what the function of the behavior is. So if the parent wants to write in a little bit more detail about what you think is the function or the reason the child's doing it. And if you can't find a function, if you can't tell why the child's doing it, especially because they're doing it in multiple settings, then I would really suggest that you start talking first to a medical doctor and make sure that everything is good with the child's blood work and so on.
Great advice. I know I read that question, and I, because of
First
my
thing you
experience,
thought?
I smelled yeast.
Yeah, exactly. When you've seen a child with yeast issues, then you kind of know this. It becomes an automatic. It's just the child becomes like almost as if they're drunk.
Yeah.
And they're just constantly like giggling and walking around a little bit sort of, you know, silly, and everything becomes very distracting.
Yeah.
So that's where I would first want to double check.
Great advice. We've got another question here that's very interesting to me. Do you ever recommend therapy breaks? My son's speech therapist recommended my son take a 3 to 6 month break because he was no longer working for her in therapy. He is 5 and started therapy when he was 18 months and has continued OT and speech therapy since.
Okay, no. I would not recommend a therapy break. This is not like a medication where you need a drug holiday or something. No. Therapy breaks tend to make things worse. Our kids often lose skills during therapy breaks, and then coming back to therapy tends to become more difficult. If the child is not working for the speech therapist, I would change the speech therapist and I would increase hours, because sometimes things start to drag out when it's just 1 or 2, 3 hours a week instead of what it's supposed to be, which is more like 15 to 20, 30 hours a week. So it's sort of like, you know, if someone tries to teach me Chinese and they're only doing it 1 hour a week, it's going to be the next 10 years. With me, it's probably going to be the next 20 years, who knows, but I would get sick of it probably pretty soon, and I'll be wanting to do other things. But if they hit it pretty intensely, it's more likely that I get to levels that are intriguing and interesting or useful faster, and then I might keep going. And I don't know how long your child's worked with this speech therapist, but it's the job of the therapist to keep things interesting. And so I never can say he's stopped working for me. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what we hope to gain from taking a break from it. I would really seriously try to find someone else.
And I'm so thrilled to hear you say that, because, you know, I think sometimes people get tired.
Absolutely.
And because something isn't reinforcing enough to them.
That's right. And therapy needs to be fun.
Right.
So, you know.
And if they've lost the ability to have a child work, that would be my first question as an ex-teacher is, you know, has this person lost their passion for doing this kind of work? Do they need a break?
Right.
You know, is that what's happening here? They need the break. But, you know, if your child has a prescription for, you know, then that's what your child needs.
Yeah.
And somebody who can get it done and is in a place of passion where they want to get it done.
And because they're passionate about it, they actually make it a lot more fun.
Yes.
And much more reinforcing and rewarding, and then both people are enjoying it, you know?
So maybe a therapy break from this professional.
Yeah.
All right. Now, our other parent who had the child who giggles in the morning wrote back some more information.
Great.
They wrote back, he's GFCF, organic, no preservatives, dyes diet. He sleeps 10 to 11 hours at night. We went to a DAN doctor and found out that he has yeast. We tried many treatments but couldn't get rid of it.
Right, and that's usually the case. Yeast is pretty difficult. My recommendation for this, I'm not sure if your child's been treated with medication for yeast, so, you know, typically we're looking at Nizoral, nystatin, the most benign, Nizoral, diflucan, that sort of stuff, and a lot of the physicians will do lower doses for a long period of time, which really does help our kids. And you know what? If you do an antifungal medication and you see a huge difference in your child during that time, and then they cycle out when a few days or 10 days, up to 10 days after the medication is finished, then you know for sure the giggling is related to yeast. So, and that could be yeast die-off too. I mean, I don't know how long you've done this diet, but it could be that your child is eliminating yeast, and as they're eliminating yeast, there's a higher level of yeast circulating in the blood or fungal infections, and so that's what's causing this giggling. And over time, if you keep up with the treatment and the diet and so on, things will change. But my recommendation, get in touch with Julie Matthews.
There you go.
And Julie will help you. Julie is a very, very awesome dietitian, and we can give you her information. She's been on this show before.
Yes.
And I find that yeast is one of those things that our dietitians are better at helping. Like our experts in diet and nutrition, they're so good at telling you exactly what foods to avoid and what foods to eat. I'm not talking about the gluten-free aspect of it, that's good, but they specifically will tell you certain fruits, for instance, that are increasing the yeast and so on, and they'll help you. I have had people who have told me in the past that if their child goes on a specific carb diet, it helps the yeast. So there are other diets that you should be looking at, and Julie is a perfect place to get advice.
Absolutely. You can find her at nourishinghope.com. And I will say, because I mentioned before, my son has yeast issues, ongoing yeast issues. We've been GFCF, organic, all of those things. But we still, especially when he was younger, had to monitor the fruit in a big way. You gave him one orange, and it was as if he had drunk a fifth of brandy.
Yeah.
We called him the drunken elf. And because he couldn't stand up straight, and so I love that. Talk to Julie Matthews, nourishinghope.com. All right, we're going to take another short break, and we'll be back more with Dr. Granpeesheh after these messages.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us live in the studio taking your questions in real time. Somebody has written in this morning, how can I get my child to talk more, especially when it comes to what she did at school that day? She is 5, mainstreamed in a private school and doing pretty good at school, but trying to get information from her about her day is like pulling teeth. She will tell me to stop asking her questions or to leave her alone when I ask her what she did that day. And if she responds, it's only routine answers like, we played recess. And they said thank you very much for taking their question.
Sure. It's a little bit, I'll give you the basic answer, but it's a little bit more complicated, and I would really recommend that this person maybe get a month's subscription or a couple of months subscription to Skills, and look at these lessons. And I'm trying to remember the new names, because traditionally we used to call this lesson "Tell Me About" and "Describe," and it was 2 sides of a lesson: describe something and tell me about something. But anyway, I'm sure you can find them in the curriculum. I think we would have put them under either language or social. I'm not sure. It was just where did we feel like it was appropriate to put this particular lesson, but. What you want to do really is you want to start with a visual cue. So you'd want to have some sort of a schedule, or just some sort of a list, and you can have just segments of the day, I suppose, and the classroom or the class schedule would would be what you follow. So like, you know, morning or during recess or whatever activities are there. So that's how you kind of segment, you know, put it into sections. And then you perhaps have your child fill in the things. So at least you're giving your child sort of a cue of shorter periods of time. So like what happened during lunch? What happened during recess? What happened during whatever? And yeah, it is hard for our kids. And if you're not there, I mean, this is one of the benefits for us, because when our kids are at this level, we have our aides there. And whether it's a actual known aid, so the child knows that this is an aid for them, or if it's a Confederate aid, so it's an aid that the child doesn't even know is there for them, we get a list, we get an observation of the child every day, right? Because we have someone there. And you could ask the teacher to help with that and tell you some, like 3 or 4 things a day in a journal so that you can prompt. But unless you know, it's going to be very hard for you to get those out of your child. Now, prompting them, once you know, like 3 things, significant things that happened that day, that's very easy, because then you can just visually, like, you know, have a drawing or write words or pictures of people or whatever it is that you use to kind of aid your child in recalling what happened. It's not that your child doesn't recall the information. They do. They might not have it in the correct order in their head. They might expect you to know it because they're having theory of mind problems. So this is one of the issues we find with our kids, is they have a hard time understanding why you're even asking that, because from their perspective, you should know what they've been doing all day.
Right.
Perspective taking, that's the problem. So it's easy enough to prompt the responses, and that's, as I said in our Tell Me About or Describe program. But and as you know, these other programs that I mentioned, like Describe, starts a little bit more basic, so you want to make sure your child actually has the vocabulary to describe this sort of thing, you know, so a lot of attributes and verbs and nouns and so on, so the child is not avoiding language just because it's hard for them to pick the right words. But at the same time, once you're at that phase, the next phase of your child being, once your child is able to say 3 or 4 things, the next thing becomes saliency, which is another lesson in our executive function curriculum. Saliency is now for the child to identify what's actually the important thing that happened. Like when you come home, you're not going to tell your parent, I went to the bathroom and washed my hands. It's something you did, but it's not important enough to tell. And the saliency lesson in skills is where your child learns to actually identify what are the unique things that happened that day versus the routine things. And so that's a whole different level of lessons, which is just too long to go into here. So I don't know really where your child is. If it's just getting them to recall, I would first get them to recall events using visual prompts. And then after that, I would work on saliency and what are the more important things or the unique things that happened.
But I love the idea of asking the school to let you know a couple of things to prime that prompt. I've totally forgotten that we did that for a while, and it's very successful.
You need that, otherwise there's, I mean, how are you going to know?
Yeah, because you don't know what to ask, and you don't always understand what's being told back to you unless you have a context for it in the beginning. So very helpful. Now, we did have the parent write back, the one that we were talking about taking a therapy break.
Oh, yeah.
They wrote back and said, but what if he stopped working for all of his therapists? Is this the same advice? And so I have this additional question that it seems a lot of parents will write in, and I remember the moment we got to this point with Jem where he didn't want to do therapy anymore. He was done in terms of his head, he was done, but he wasn't done in terms of the goals that we had for him. And I remember Sienna Greener-Wooten was spending a couple of minutes with him, and she is amazing, one of the most passionate people on the face of the planet, knows how to work with a kid, how to motivate them. And he said, I don't want to do this. And Sienna said, okay, I get that. I hear that. But here are the 3 things that you have to show to us that you know how to do. And once you do that, then you don't have to do this anymore. Right. And then he went, oh, okay. And then he did it.
Right. And if you think about it, exactly what Sienna was doing was she was identifying, Jem's telling you, I don't want to do this. That means I would like to avoid this or escape from this altogether. Okay, and Sienna's doing what our behaviors should do, which is saying, no problem. that's the function, that's what you want. But in order to get that, these 3 things have to happen.
Yeah.
So this is what I really want from you, and then you can avoid seeing me.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And in this case, when I hear that a bunch of therapists, then I would just say the program is not rewarding. So either the complexity of the program, or you just need to get to a level where it's a little bit more fun. You know, the number one thing, if you don't have adequate reinforcers in a program, then it doesn't work. Pack it up and go home. Reinforcement. So evaluate your child's program altogether and make sure that the therapists are extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
And if your child's at the point, like Jem, for instance, and they understand that there's X, Y, and Z left, and if they do these things, then they can avoid therapy, then use that as a reinforcer. Otherwise, just increase reinforcers. You know, make it a little bit more fun and make it functional. Our kids tend to, everybody, you get bored if you keep memorizing stuff that's useless.
Yeah.
So make sure that it becomes useful. When your child learns something from therapy, make sure they benefit from it in some additional way, and that's long-term reinforcement rather than just, you know, short-term reinforcers right now. So it's something having to do with the program. It's taking a break will not solve the problem.
Okay. We have time for one more short question. Is Rett's syndrome a related disorder to autism?
Yeah, well, it used to be. It's not anymore classified. It is only in that the behaviors that are exhibited, so the topography looks similar. Rett's used to be classified under the pervasive developmental disorders in autism in Diagnostic Manual 4R. 4 and 4R and 3, and for what long time. It has now been separated because there is a very clear genetic component to it. So it's been pulled out. Rett's is easier to diagnose simply because there's, you know, biological testing where you can diagnose Rett's. Having said that, it's a little bit more, I guess our kids tend to have more severe symptoms if they actually are diagnosed with Rett's. However, they still also do benefit from ABA, from therapy. I do have a lot of children who have Rett's, and they will exhibit similar behaviors. They will do very well with ABA. So now it's no longer classified as one of the ASDs.
Okay, I think a lot of times as parents we get caught up in the label of, you know, well, if it's this, does it mean this, and is it related to? But what I just heard you say is that the answer in all these cases is to get good quality ABA therapy.
It is, but I mean, it is also in that sense, knowing that your child has Rett's is important because it is a genetic issue, and there are certain other treatments that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Okay. With anything else, it's sort of like, you know, if you know your child has certain behaviors, but you also know that they have seizure disorder, or, you know, so it's important to know the medical, obviously, and to keep an eye on it, and then make sure that you're, like, for instance, there's research going on right now at UCLA for kids with Rett's, and you'd want to be part of those types of things because they're groundbreaking, and if they should find something that's going to be helpful, you want to know that. But at the same time, the real answer is just, seeing if this technique works to teach your child. And I guarantee you, I mean, ABA works for everyone, not just kids with autism. So I guarantee you this is a very good way to teach your child.
Great. Unfortunately, we are out of time and we have to let Dr. Granpeesheh go. She has important places to be.
Thank you.
But we're going to take a break and go to the A word, and then we'll come back for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. During that show, we are going to have Vin Di Bona from America's Funniest Home Videos with us, and we are also going to have Grady Brown, a wonderful advocate and ambassador for autism. As we go to break where we see the A word, I want to remind all of you, we announced yesterday, we're giving you an opportunity to take part in a study. If you would like to be watching our show and other shows having to do with autism, we have a few Rokus left that we're going to be giving away. It is contingent upon you answering some questions and participating in a focus group about the autism programs you'll be watching. So if you would like to get a free Roku sent to you, we still have several of them left, you need to let us know. send us an email, and then we will verify that you are one of the people that will get one. You'll have to fill out a little bit of information, and we'll send one off to you. So keep us informed if you would like to participate in that study and get a free Roku. We're going to go now to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. So take a look at what's happening in Jack's world. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Exciting. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Jack. Oh, that was okay. Try again. Go over there and walk back to her again. Jack Riley, come back and walk nicely to her. Walk nicely. Oh, yeah, high fives! Yay! You did it! She's so happy.
So you guys are doing more programs trying to incorporate sister?
Yes, trying to have them tolerate being around her and practicing having them engage in the same activity. For his target right now is 2 minutes, so we're hopefully trying to increase the time. But she's going to be around forever, so we do want him to get used to being around her and accepting that she will get into his stuff every now and then, or all the time. We're going to do nice playing with Lainey, okay? We're going to do it 5 times, all right? All right, so you put on a piece and then Lainey Grace can put one on. Yay! Look, you get your first axe. Good job, buddy. We're going to keep going. That was excellent. Okay, Lainey's turn. Here you go. Good job. Okay, Lainey. Okay. I'll help your sister. Yes, a potato head. Wait, your turn. Good job. Should we put the ear on Lainey? Purpose of outings that we go on with our kids is to have them get exposure to the community, and we go with them to assist the parents and to model for them how to redirect inappropriate behaviors when they do happen, how to even prompt the kids to interact with other kids, so when they do go out and we're not there, it's a lot easier for them, and it just becomes more natural for the parents and the kids.
Usually I'm pretty on edge at a park when he walks up to a group. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes it's imagined, and then sometimes he justifies it.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I am Nancy Allspaw Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Hey, we're blue and red today. We need a little white here.
That's
red,
right.
white, and blue.
We got the white up top.
Yes, we do. Okay. I've got a little blonde covering the white.
I was going to say, yours
but
is the blonde white.
It's white.
You're kind of a platinum blonde.
Okay, well, that's a trick because it turned white and then I put a little blonde over it, but it's white.
You're working it, honey. You're working it. I love it.
Thank you, darling.
You look fabulous, as always.
And you look fabulous, I might say.
I'm feeling very chipper today.
Oh, good.
I'm so excited about our guests.
I am too, and he was going to be here in studio, but he had a last-minute thing that's going to take him out of town, so we're going to join him via satellite. I'm so happy. Vin Di Bona, he's a television legend, especially in Boston, where I worked for 12 years, and he went to Emerson College. And anyway, everybody loves Vin Di Bona, not only America's Funniest Home Videos, but many other shows. He's one of the original creators of Entertainment Tonight, among other things, and he is an Act Today board member, and this year we are honoring him with what we call our Activist Award. Clever little play on words there. Autism Care and Treatment Today Activist, because he has supported us for 3 years now in a very, very generous way, and he really believes in supporting our children and young adults on the autism spectrum by giving back.
Yeah, I'm welling up because I had the opportunity to meet him last year at the Denim & Diamonds red carpet, and I kind of gushed because I know a lot of you have written in and said this as well. My family on Sunday night sits down and we watch America's Funniest Home Videos together, and we did this from the time that Jem was a baby, and that was when we got to hear him laugh. And we used that show to teach him humor.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think humor is one of the greatest gifts there is in the world. And the idea that I was potentially going to have a child who didn't understand humor was devastating.
Well,
to
I want
me.
you to say this because I want
All
you
right.
to tell Vin again. I want you to remind him of this, okay?
it's very emotional.
So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back with Mr. Vin Di Bona.
Yay.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman from Taka here to do some more cooking. Are you ready? Allergy-friendly fun, and I've got a guest.
I'm Jamie Davis. Yes, I'm her sister.
Today we're all about cooking something really fun and healthy. That's a dessert. We're going to actually use carrots, real carrots, and we're going to talk about how to make the best tasting carrot cake you could ever hope for. So it's really easy. You don't want to buy the carrots that are the baby carrots. Why?
Well, those aren't really carrots. What they do is they take carrots, they mush them all up, they took whatever the carrot looks like, they throw it in a bin, they bleach them, and they process them, and then they have a little machine that makes them into little formed baby carrots. So really not born that way.
So this is what a carrot really looks like?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good to know. So I just want to show everybody how to make really simply. We just washed off the carrots that are really dirty from the farmer's market, and we're going to throw them in to our food processor. So what's good about the food processor is that we can go for a really fine grade. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 3 cups of carrots. Then the next thing I'm going to pull in is our gluten-free, casein-free flours. I'm using a protein-based flour. Bob's Red Mill is great. I also have my flaxseed meal and pure cane sugar that's organic. I cut it down already, so you don't need to cut it again.
And one of the reasons why we like to use organic sugar is because, once again, most sugars on the market are bleached to make them look perfect.
Yeah, we don't like perfect.
No.
We like ours.
That's why we like each other.
All right, so we've added our baking soda, baking powder, xanthan gum, nutmeg, and salt. Now, again, why we use the gums is that's the ingredient that actually holds the flour together. Regular flour automatically has that gluten. This is the replacement to the gluten. These are the secret ingredients for the cake itself. 3/4 cup of the crushed pineapple is in there. It gives it a beautiful texture and flavor. And now what I'm using is the oil. What are your favorite oils, Jamie?
I like using coconut oil any chance I get. In fact, coconut oil would be excellent in the carrot cake.
Now what I did was I reserved a little bit of the oil, and we placed it in the bottom of that pan so it doesn't stick.
Yep.
But we love the baking stones.
Yes.
Why do we love the baking stones?
Evenly cooks.
Yes.
And easy cleanup.
If you like crispy, you got to get a baking stone. I also feel that they're less toxic. So now I'm going to cook this thing at 350 for about 35 minutes. You really want to get it golden. Let's get it in there. Awesome. So now that we got our cake all done, let's get on with the frosting. Coconut oil, probably the best thing in the world you can eat. It's so good for your brain. It's one of the best oils that we can use. So I'm going to use a 1/3 cup of the coconut oil. And then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of an organic vanilla, Madagascar, and make sure it's alcohol free. And then what we're going to do is add 16 ounces of organic powdered sugar. And we're going to add our 4 to 6 tablespoons of coconut milk. I'm using the whisk version here on the KitchenAid, which will give it a nice mix. All right, so if you get any on the sides, you just come on in with your little spatula, and this makes the best frosting for the cake. So we're almost done whipping it up, and voila! We are talking good stuff right here. We have the best situation for the best birthday cake, especially if you want to deal with something that perhaps has a little less sugar. You've got a great cake that no one will know the difference. I'm not a decorator. I don't like to decorate. I just want to eat it. I don't care what it looks like. Ask my family. I'm a family with autism. I just want to eat the cake. Are you ready to do this? It can be your birthday. Yay! So to me, this is so good. It's meant to be gooey. As you can see, But what I love about this is a great birthday cake with extra frosting to make your kids happy. A little less sugar and a lot of love. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com, and on Facebook, Facebook/autismlive. And then you can reach me and Jamie and get some more ideas from the taco recipe side. So let's have some more cake.
We say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
We are back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and we have a very special guest now, Mr. Vin Di Bona, as we said, the creator of America's Funniest Home Videos, a legendary television producer. He's done so much in his long career. And Vin, welcome to the show.
Nancy, that was a really nice introduction.
Well, I do have to throw in a little tidbit here. I worked with Vin on a show and about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and with Richard Simmons. And, you know, I had heard stories of what a gentleman you were, Vin. And, you know, you hear that and you don't know whether to believe it because most times people that they say are a gentleman aren't. But you truly are Vin. And
well, thank you. And I heard great stuff about you. And certainly when we worked together, it was all true and a great experience working with you. Thanks, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Vin. We're going to talk a little bit later about how you are receiving our Activist Award this year. You're our honoree at our largest gala of the year, Denim and Diamonds for Autism, in 2013. It's the 8th annual. You're going to be honored for your work supporting Act Today. But first, we want to talk about America's Funniest Home Videos. Who doesn't know that show, Vin?
Everyone, I hope.
Well, there are little pockets in the country that we're still working on.
Really? You got to be kidding me. Shannon?
Yeah, I don't have any reception for television, but that's another story.
Okay. Shannon, will you tell Vin about how important that show was with your son with autism?
You know, I had an opportunity to meet you last year on the red carpet and your lovely wife, and I gushed over him because, I mean, Shamar Moore was standing there, and I was gushing over you and your wife because the show has meant so much to us. On Sunday nights, my family for years now has sat down to watch America's Funniest Home Videos in times that were really dark where we needed a laugh. We laughed with our child, and I was saying to Nancy before, we used your show to teach humor to our son, which I think is one of the greatest gifts in life. So I owe you so much, and I want to thank you for the work that you've done and giving us all something to laugh at.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and Shannon, rather. It's something we take very seriously with the show. We take laughing seriously, but you know, it's not unusual that situations have arisen where we've gotten many letters in from people whose children have been affected by autism, and for some reason, when the show goes on, there's a real calming aspect to children watching the show. And we certainly never knew this was going to be the case, but we're certainly happy to hear events like this. And it just makes our work all the more wonderful to be doing.
Well, we're going to go to a clip to remind us of how much we love the show. But I just want to say, maybe there's an idea here. Maybe we have a new component to behavior therapy. We can convince Dr. Doreen to include AFV as a part of the kids' therapy, teaching humor.
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like a deal, and if we can prepare the correct sequences of clips and things, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Oh, well, we might have created something great here. Okay, Emily, we're going to go to the clip, and Vin, after the clip, we're going to go straight to break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about Denim and Diamonds.
That's great.
I, all of you, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name.
How many are there?
9.
Are there that many?
Yeah, 9.
Goodness. What are they?
The Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. It's not Uranus. When they said Uranus, some kids got giggling. They went giggle, giggle.
This summer, you're going to have a new baby in the family.
A new baby? A new baby in the family?
A new baby in the family. There'll be 1, 2, 3 of you.
You did!
Oh, how cute. It really does show us that laughter is the best medicine, Ben.
Well, thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with more of Mr. Vin Di Bona.
Look forward to it.
Oh, sorry. Just come back up then. Come back up. We're back with Mr. Vin Di Bona. And Vin, you've been such a supporter of Act Today. It's going on 3 years now. Can you tell us why, what was the determining factor? Because I know you get approached by, you serve on many boards. What was a determining factor for you to do this?
Well, I think the reason I selected some of the clips with the children is because I believe that this is an organization that needs to be at the forefront of autism. And Nancy, I think you and Reed are certainly the model parents. And I really felt that children and communication and the ability to help through these issues is an important aspect of what we need to do on a daily basis. So it really was your sensibility and your dedication that led me to believe that this is something that is important to follow through with. And you know, the stars were aligning. Tom was going to do it. He was being honored, and it really all was a very unique experience that I think I wanted to be part of.
I'm cavelling here,
yes,
so you take over.
But I wanted to know if autism has affected your life. Do you have friends and associates that have children on the autism spectrum?
I have some friends that have children who had touches of Asperger's. I don't think, other than some of the responses that we've had from audience members about, as we talked about earlier, about their children somehow having a accommodative effect watching our show. But really, I think this is a very difficult issue for both parents, grandparents, and people who hear the word but don't know really what the symptoms are and how to deal with it and where to go. And so when Nancy and Tom approached me a couple of years ago, it just felt like the perfect thing to do, to be part of. And I'm very, very humbled by what's about to happen this year. And it's just a unique organization that gets right to the problem. When the grants are in, it's an immediate solution for some families. And I was reading about now you're into helping military families,
yes,
which must be monumental. And I just can't thank you enough for what you do and what the organization is doing to help combat this really difficult issue in American and worldwide families.
You know, Vin, you put it so eloquently. It's now 1 in 88 children, 1 in 54 boys. So we're all going to be affected by this. You mentioned why you do it, and you personally are responsible for raising tens of thousands of dollars for us, to which we're forever indebted. The award this year is going to be given on October 6th at the Four Seasons Hotel, the 8th annual Denim and Diamonds for Autism. We still have some tickets left. They are flying off the shelves like hotcakes. And then we have a lot of people showing up to support you. Tom Bergeron, who hosts AFV, and of course Dancing with the Stars, is going to be...
He damn well better be there.
Well, he's hosting, Vin. He's showing up to host.
I know.
And you've got some other people coming out. I'm just going to mention a few names because I want to leave some surprises. Alan Thicke. Alan Thicke is coming. You have worked with him in the past. Daisy Fuentes, the beautiful, very influential in the Latino world. And can you tell us why you think it's important for celebrities and people like you of, great stature in the entertainment industry to help promote autism awareness?
Well, I think certainly not me, but celebrity status is something for unknown reasons that people really believe that when a celebrity is behind something, I think it makes them a much more accessible human being, and certainly with Alan and Daisy and Tom, these are people that communicate very, very well. And I think when communicators are able to say, I'm behind this issue, I think it means a lot to the public. And it's something that they feel comfortable with if, in fact, that celebrity is that great communicator.
Right.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I know you have come to the Denim and Diamonds event for the last 2 years, and it's known for being very fun-filled.
Yes, absolutely.
And for people who are thinking about coming and want to know, what's your favorite part of the event?
Well, I like bidding on things that I normally wouldn't probably do. I took a group of us. We went to wine tasting up in the wine country, and had I not done that, I probably wouldn't have taken that trip. But it was great because it was some of the staffers here, and we just all had a great time. There's a dinner I bid for last year that I'm actually having next month at my home. There's so much to choose from. The food is great, the atmosphere is great, the entertainment's terrific, but more importantly, you're there to do a job. You're there to help the organization, plan for the next year, plan for how to help even more. And that's really what the night is about. It's about having fun, but it's about being responsible and doing a great job for the worldwide community.
Having fun while doing good is what we call it. And one of the best parts, Shannon, that I hear a lot of people say is you don't have to wear diamonds, you can wear denim. The same goes this year, even though I wear at the Four Seasons in Westlake, you can still put on those denim jeans and those cowboy boots if you'd like.
Well, and one of my favorite parts this year is going to be seeing you being honored for your work. Because I want you to know it's personal with me. I thank you so much for what you have done for our family and for so many other families.
And thank you.
We need to do more.
Thank you, Vin, for everything you've done for ACT Today. You've been such an eloquent guest. I can't even tell you the things you've said here today really sum it up. And we're so excited. It's a week and a half away. We got a lot of surprises for you, Mr. Di Bona.
Okay.
All right.
I might wear a suit.
You can wear a suit. You can wear a suit. You can wear whatever you want.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Vin.
you so much.
Looking forward to the event.
Bye-bye.
And of course, we send him well wishes for his mom.
Yes, we do, because he's going back to Rhode Island to visit his 96-year-old, or was it 98?
I'm not.
Okay, she's up there, and she's a pistol. Just I had the pleasure of meeting her. What a lovely lady, and a remarkable man, and really deserving of this honor this year. We're also honoring Susan Campbell Cross, who's been here. Has been giving us some lifestyle tips on de-stressing. She's getting what we call our Golden Cowgirl Award.
Love it.
And we have, and Tom Bergeron is hosting. You heard Alan Thicke, Daisy Fuentes. These are just a few of the many celebrities. You can go on act-today.org. You will see a link to buy tickets. Yes. I think we've got about 120 tickets left.
There you go.
So out of 450. So
remarkable. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. Come back with some in the news, and then a little bit later on in the program, Grady Brown will be with us.
An ambassador for autism and a published author. I cannot wait to meet Grady.
Very exciting. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing? Is he safe? We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and then they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. It's time for us to talk about some stories in the news.
Yes.
And very interesting. Which one do you want to do first? Do you want to?
Let's talk about the one that came to us under the heading cashing in on fears of autism. Scientists claim they can predict whether a mom will have a child with autism.
Yeah.
This is based on the study that we talked about not too long ago. UC Davis Mind Institute published a study that described 7 antibodies found in the blood of some mothers of autistic children and much less often found in the blood of typically developing children. And they suggested that these antibodies somehow got into the brains of developing fetuses, causing autism. And they even gave it a name, maternal autoantibody-related, or MAR, autism. Now, it goes on to say that the biggest red flag is that the two lead authors, Daniel Braunschweig and Judy van der Water, already have a patent on the proteins described in their paper. And that van der Water is involved with a company, Pediatric Biosciences, that is already marketing a test to predict autism based on the study. He's the chief science advisor for the company, which is licensed, van der Water, chief science advisor, licensed her patent for the specific test. The company website claims, I'll read directly, to date, the test has demonstrated 100% accuracy, meaning if a mother or prospective mother has developed the antibodies, then her child will later be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Wow. This sounds incredibly accurate, according this article is going on to say.
Yeah.
This test is apparently the sole product of BPI, and they trumpeted the new study with a press release claiming that. So this article is saying, with all the hype, despite the major conflicts of interest of the lead authors, did the study show what they are claiming? Is this a test mothers should take? In a word, no, according to this writer.
Right.
Who says the study doesn't even answer the right question. Study looked at antibodies in the blood of mothers some years after their pregnancy, not during or after. Therefore, it doesn't tell us whether a test of pregnant mother will predict anything at all. Second, their striking claim of 100% accuracy is false. The press release only claimed 99%. The study proved no such evidence. And it expressed alarm, this author is expressing alarm, that Pediatric Biosciences, van der Water and the other, Daniel Braunschweig, seem far more interested in making money off the fears of prospective parents. They're going to be offering the test next year, $800 for the test. So, a lot of controversy on this. What's your take?
Well, first of all, I've met Judy van der Water, and she's a doctor who has presented at ARI the highest quality, highest integrity. So my question is, what's behind whoever is writing this? Because we recently had David Humphrey on the show talking about the fact that they have been able to figure out ways to test mothers to see if they are at risk for. I don't think, and I'm glad that they reiterated here this 99%. I don't think that they have definitively 100% anything, but with high accuracy to be able to see if a mother is at risk for having a child with autism. Now, the good news about that is that if they know that somebody is at risk, there is a protocol that is out there that is shown to be very effective, that women who are about to get pregnant, who are already pregnant, can be on this protocol of lessening toxic load and strengthening their immune system. And that has been shown to be very effective. The studies are still set to come out, but it's been shown already to be very effective at decreasing the numbers of children in that group of parents who have autism.
Okay.
Greatly reducing it. And then also, when those mothers have children and are at risk, we know that if they start therapy before a year, that they've been very effective at preventing a child from getting a diagnosis altogether. So this idea that they're preying on our fears, we're already afraid, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Every mother I know that's pregnant out there planning to have children, they all come to me, what can I do? What can I do? Should I vaccinate? Should I this? Should I that?
And these kinds of things, these kinds of studies, for my mind, are raising ideas for what we can do to minimize the risk.
Okay, I agree with you.
Okay.
Okay, so we're saying that the other thing is that I have heard many times it stated about professionals in working in the field of autism in established best practices roles, that they're making a living off our children. They're cashing in on our children. I totally disagree.
Well, I do too. I mean, when all the doctors that you take your child to at any point, they're collecting a fee as well, and they have nice homes.
Yeah, is every doctor out there cashing in on illness?
Yeah.
Just because somebody's working in the field of autism, they have a successful company doing that, and they're not selling snake oil,
right.
Then, here's to them.
And
it's a free market society, people.
Forgive me, for $800 a test to see whether you're at risk and whether you should do the protocol, that seems like a very minimal amount to me, because we are aware of tests where people are charging $5,000 just to test your child's blood to see a whole host of other things.
That's
so
right.
$800 to
Right.
me sounds...
Compared to what you pay for assessments and everything else you're going to have to do when you have a child diagnosed.
So
I think you're right. Maybe somebody has an axe to grind here.
That's what I'm sensing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then
there we
another
go.
study I wanted to get your take on. Oxytocin shows evidence of therapeutic value for autism and schizophrenia. This was in an article in the September Harvard Review of Psychiatry, so, very esteemed publication, that oxytocin is an important regulator of human social behaviors, as we know, and that they found evidence of oxytocin's involvement in social decision-making, evaluating and responding to social stimuli, mediating social interactions, and forming social memories in humans. Some studies have reported a dysfunction in oxytocin processing in children with autism and related disorders. So based on initial trials, and I always love the language in these things, oxytocin may one day win, cover your whatever to, be a useful treatment agent for improving some aspects of social cognition for reduced repetitive behaviors. So, the question is, they say, despite promising results, it's much too early to conclude that oxytocin is a helpful treatment for autism, schizophrenia, or any other psychiatric disorder. Now, I thought this was really weird because they said oxytocin, the heading was, could be useful in treating psychiatric disorders, and they put autism under that. Autism's not a psychiatric disorder, it's a neurological disorder.
Well, but this is the age-old debate, right? Because it's included in the diagnostic criteria for psychiatric disorders, and that's one of the huge fights that people have, is they say it shouldn't be there, but that is where the diagnostic criteria is.
All right. Well, they're doing clinical trials at the moment, apparently, and they're saying even if the evidence gets stronger, there's currently no reliable way of giving the oxytocin treatment so the brain gets it in a predictable way. So once again, shows promise. I mean, how many stories have we read like this?
Yeah, but you asked me in the break before if they do start giving it as a therapeutic treatment, would I give it to my son? And I said, gee, it's going to depend for me on what the side effects are. It's a hormone, and if our children are depleted of that hormone and giving that makes a difference, this is exciting to me. I'm at an age where the discussion of where hormones are and how it affects you hits rather close to home.
Yes.
So I do know that when you have too much of one hormone and not enough of another, it makes me cranky.
Right.
I don't know about everyone else. It's me much more likely to be social.
Yes.
I get that. But I don't know, if it took away my son's... We're at a point now, we weren't years ago, but we're at a point now where a lot of the aspects of autism that he have are in the plus column.
Okay.
Whereas before, there were aspects of it that were in the negative column. So I would want to make sure that it didn't take away the pluses.
I gotcha.
And what about you?
If it showed that there were minimal, and I mean minimal side effects, I would be, one thing I noticed, it said it helps with repetitive behaviors. That's something we have not been able to crack, which I do believe inhibit Wyatt's moving forward. But then again, those repetitive behaviors have caused him to be a brilliant artist, sitting at his canvas, doing things with the paint that I don't understand, and it turns out beautiful. So it's a tricky topic. But if it made him more social, if it took away some of the repetitive stimming, I would say yes, I would try it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens with this drug as it all unfolds.
Very interesting. And I hear that we have our next guest.
Yes.
Out waiting in our waiting room here. We're getting ready to come into our luxurious studio.
Yes, we laugh. But Grady Brown is here. We're waiting to talk to him. So we're going to take a break and come back. This is an interview that you're not going to want to miss. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3. They shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? Well, what skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or on even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals, you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. In the studio with us right now, we have a wonderful young gentleman, age of 24, Grady Brown. He is an author and an ambassador of autism. This is how the term that we were told. And you're okay with this term, an ambassador of autism?
Of course.
Well, we are so very excited to have you here with us today, and you came bearing gifts, which we just love. This is these are some of Grady's books right here.
I'm impressed, Grady.
I am too. This is pretty exciting. So, Grady, tell us a little bit about you. You're 24 years old, and you are on the autism spectrum. Is that correct?
That is correct.
When were you diagnosed with autism?
When I was a toddler, and I wasn't aware that I had autism until I was like in middle or high school.
Mm-hmm. And is that when your parents also became aware of the fact you had autism, or did they know earlier?
They knew earlier.
Okay. When you were a toddler, when
Correct.
you were diagnosed. Okay.
Okay.
And who told you that you had autism? How did you get that information?
I basically found out myself after interacting with my classmates in high school.
Okay. As part of being diagnosed quite young, did you receive treatment and therapy, any extensive treatment and therapy?
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of visual, verbal, and motor function therapy.
Okay. And do you feel that made a huge difference? Because you're such an articulate young man.
I think it made a big difference.
Okay, and obviously you had a lot of love and support. Your dad, Mike, is here with you today out in the outer studio.
Yes.
And do you have any siblings?
An older sister, Erin Brown, who recently got married.
Oh, how nice! Congratulations to Erin. And how was it having an older sister? Did she help you a lot?
Oh yes, she did. She basically stood up for me throughout elementary school whenever I had bully issues.
And we know that bully issues are a part of, unfortunately, all childhood experiences, but sometimes when somebody's on the spectrum, it can really play a role. And when we were looking at this book here, we talked about bullies just a second ago, and you mentioned that this tall metal guy is a bully character in this book.
Correct.
Right. And so, Grady, I think these are just fascinating books. What age range are these appropriate for? And when did you decide to write these books?
Well, when I started writing that one, The Young Guardians and the Genesis Spell, during my junior year in high school. And I published it in my junior year of college.
Very exciting. Those are good credits for anybody.
I'm impressed. I mean, we often talk about limitations for those on the autism spectrum, but clearly so many gifts. And Grady, you're such a great example of that. It says you're a long-time science fiction devotee and that you are a lifelong writer. Did you start writing when you were much younger?
Yes. When I was, little.
Yeah.
I told stories not with words like I do today, but with pictures.
Okay.
And my parents would supply me whole truckloads of yellow tablets that I would draw stories on.
Okay.
But at 6th grade, I learned how to write with words.
All right, great.
Really remarkable. So, Grady, where can people get a copy of these books?
On Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Okay, so they would look under author Grady P. Brown. And we've got The Young Guardians and the Great Darkness.
And The Young Guardians and the Genesis Spell. So look for those on Amazon. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have some more questions for Grady. Stick with us. Hi, we're here with Temple Grandin. And we're going to be asking her some of your questions that you guys have written into us. First of all, Temple, I want to thank you for being with us here today.
No, it's good to be here.
This is a question that I want to know. When you went to the Emmys and you went to all these different events and you were there in your wonderful shirt, was there anybody who tried to talk you into wearing something else? Or did they just understand that you needed to be who you were?
Well, I think being eccentric is just fine. I dressed eccentric at the Emmys. Eccentric's fine. Being a filthy slob is not fine. Let's look at the latest Mars rover. You got the Mohawk guy that's the head of the expedition. You got the Elvis guy that figured out how to land on the moon and he wears Elvis outfits. I think that's just fine. But you can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob. That's the thing where draw the line. Eccentric's fine. I remember a guy who was on the spectrum and he taught astronomy at a local college. And he had beautiful astronomy t-shirts and he had long hair with a ponytail this long. And I said to him, don't let anybody cut your ponytail off. Wear it with pride, but it must be washed and it must be clean.
There you
and
go.
Neat.
Love it. Did they try to talk you into wearing a dress, or they?
Oh no, nobody knew I would wear a dress. I got too much of a farmer tan and would just look just terrible. No, you're not going to get me in an evening gown. I did buy some new black pants. I'm going to wear it tonight.
Well, I thought you looked great.
Well, I want to let you know about the shirt award of the Emmys.
Yeah.
That was a Ralph Lauren shirt.
There
okay,
you go.
fashion snobs. And that was a gift from my sister for Christmas.
We are back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a remarkable young man in the studio. Grady P. Brown is a writer, a science fiction writer. He's 24 years old. He is on the autism spectrum. He is an Autism Ambassador, showing us what gifts and abilities our young people on the spectrum can display. Nice to have you here, Grady.
Thank
I asked you in the break, what were some of the most important factors for you in getting support as you were growing up having autism?
Well, I was assigned a number of speech therapists and whatnot, but I think the most important factor of all is to find someone who does not consider the individual in question to be a job and nothing else.
Really eloquently put.
And you said you found some people that not only didn't consider it to be a job, but really helped you develop a philosophy. You mentioned somebody in particular. Can you tell us a little bit about that person?
Yes, Joanne Lloyd.
Okay.
And she basically was very friendly and offered help whenever I needed it and not before. And basically, she taught me a number of philosophical aspects of life that I take to heart even to this day.
Can you tell us a few of those?
Well, basically, she told me one specific thing, that the only thing better than gaining knowledge is to pass it on.
What a wonderful thing. You had mentioned this during the break, Nancy, that there are going to be so many parents that are going to be watching this, Grady, and thinking, wow, I want my child to grow up to be like Grady. You're an inspiration. What advice would you give to those parents?
Well, basically, if you're looking for someone who can help your child with their condition, then I would recommend looking very carefully at a person's credentials. That way you can tell whether or not they'll consider your child to be a job or if they genuinely care about your child.
Yeah, absolutely. You even had said something about that sometimes when the people look at their child, look at the child as a job, that they become an official bully, I think was the word you used.
Yes, basically bullies who are adults.
Yeah.
You know, Grady, I think that one of the things you must have learned, you said that not helping when you don't need it, but giving you that level of support. It sounds like what this important teacher did for you was she gave you wings and she let you fly with them.
Exactly.
I want to know more about these books and about what your process is in writing books. So you're 24 years old. You mentioned that you went to college. Are you done with college now?
Well, I'm currently in college, and in a year or so, I'll be transferring to Concordia University.
Okay.
Congratulations. Where are you at college now?
I'm at Santiago Canyon College and Santa Ana College.
Okay, great. So you're going to school and you also write in your part-time?
Correct.
And how much time do you spend writing a day?
About an hour or so.
Okay. And so how long, doing an hour a day, did it take you to write this book?
About 3 years to write, edit, and publish it.
Wow. That's some perseverance. That's pretty amazing.
That's staying power. Yeah.
Really
you were dedicated. What are your goals and your plans for the future, Grady, after you go to Concordia?
Well, I hope to get my major in creative writing and complete a library science certificate that will allow me to rise through the ranks in my job at the Tustin Public Library.
Okay.
And complete my 5-part series.
Excellent. Do we have a question, do we hear?
Well, no, we were just told this needs to be our last question.
Oh,
We're out of
okay.
time. So, but Grady, thank you so much for taking the time to come here and be with us and to let us get a chance to meet you. You're a remarkable young man.
I want to say one thing. Would you? I'm sure you would be, but what if one day these were made into movies?
Oh, that's one of my goals. As well
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
You know what? A man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? That was written by Robert Browning, the great poet, and I think it applies to you.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for coming in. I think you've inspired me.
Yes.
I think you've inspired a lot of parents out there, and hopefully some kids that are watching. And we wish you nothing but the best. I want to have you come work with Act Today some, okay?
Okay.
All right, sounds great. Thank you for coming.
And we want to encourage people to check your books
check
out
it out
on Amazon. Beautiful, beautiful books. Can't wait to read them.
Yeah.
All right.
Grady P. Brown.
There we go. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more after these messages. Monica Holloway is a critically acclaimed author, speaker, and activist. She is also an autism mom. Her son, Wills, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Now, at the age of 15, Wills is a high school freshman, attending a mainstream school.
I'm in a brand new school. I'm in a great school that I love, and I'm really happy there. I made friends pretty quickly on the first day, and something interesting happened to me on the first day.
Tell me.
We were doing an art project with fabric markers, and there was a little label on it that said, "Squeeze for best results."
Okay.
And so I squeezed it and it exploded all over the people at my table.
Oh no!
And we were all covered in little blue dots.
I asked Wills how he describes autism to people.
I say that I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a slight form of autism. It doesn't make you any different. It really doesn't. It's just there, and it just kind of makes you who you are. I asked Wills what he thought of the Sandy Hook shooter's actions being linked to autism. Please, just don't be scared of autism. If somebody has autism, don't be scared of them. Chances are they're not violent. They're just like you or me. Monica is a proud mom with good cause. I asked her to describe Wills in 5 words.
Generous, curious, funny, sensitive, loving.
We had a chance to talk about the Sandy Hook massacre and how Monica heard the news.
On Friday, when the shooting happened in Connecticut, I was in my car, and my husband Michael called to tell me what had happened. And I was in a state of shock, as I think we all were, with that many children. And I felt, I guess a mind can't take in that kind of information without feeling nauseous. I felt it go from here all the way down my body. I started calling everybody I knew to tell them I loved them, and I was thinking about them, and I just wanted to be with the people that I knew. I started hearing more and more information come on the news about this shooter having Asperger's or being autistic. And then I started hearing things about, well, does autism cause violence? And I was in a whole other level of shock. Never in a million years would I think that somebody might associate us and my son's face with the face of violence just because he has Asperger's. And I've seen bad days and good days, and that's what kills me, is like there was not a day bad enough to ever make me think that he or any of his friends could ever be violent. The only thing that made me even feel a little bit better, to do something to help educate. And so we've started a campaign on my Facebook page, Cowboy and Wills. It's called I Am the Face of Autism. And please post a picture of yourself. It can be your child, your friend with autism. Let's put these beautiful faces of these people with autism on to wipe out the face of this murderer. Let's put our faces in front of his.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've had quite a show today, haven't we? Some amazing guests.
I've just been so inspired today. Vin Di Bona, you don't have to do good things in the community when you reach that level of wealth and fame. And he's asked by he's on the board of the Smithsonian Institute. Yeah. So for him to support Act Today means so much to us and to families, because what it translates into is more money raised for grants. Absolutely. So he was just so eloquent. Grady, if Wyatt could grow up to be like that, I would be so proud.
Yeah, absolutely. But I got to tell you,
can we get through a show without crying?
No, why would we? But can I tell you, honestly, you're going to be proud of Wyatt however he grows up. You are.
And he's, Wyatt writes and paints, and so I can see the direction he's going
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to take a minute to talk about the fact that we've got some really exciting things in the shoot coming up.
Yes, we do.
One of the things that we have coming up, you've got a new segment that you've been working on, Empowering Parents.
Yes, Empowering Parents with children with autism. And I'm sharing sharing in short segments 10 steps to empowerment that I have learned along the way. As I say, I'm not a doctor, but I am a parent, and I've spoken to many parents, and I've lived this life, and I am an advocate and an activist for others. And there are things that have helped me in my journey. We can't forget the whole family. Of course, the focus is on our children, but we also have to shore up emotionally and spiritually for this journey. And hopefully I can give parents a little bit of inspiration, that little shot in the arm. Maybe they're having a rough patch, maybe they're having a bad day, and it can help get them over that hurdle.
And you know what they say, you can't have a testimony until you've had a test, and I'm here to tell you that Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson has had the test, passed the test, and she has a testimony. You're going to want to hear these lovely segments. They're really beautiful.
Thank you.
And those are debuting starting on the 16th. We're going to debut the first one during Ask Dr. Doreen before Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And next week on the show, we have a very important but sometimes controversial guest.
Very controversial.
Dr. Andrew Wakefield will be joining us via Skype next Wednesday for the show. He, of course, is very well known to a lot of people. He's a very controversial doctor, sort of the central point of a lot of the controversy surrounding the
MMR. He conducted the MMR study that showed the link between MMR virus in the stomachs of children,
which created a firestorm.
A firestorm.
But Dr. Wakefield is coming on to talk with us about a really important documentary that he is very involved with Who Killed Alex Sportakalis.
Good pronunciation.
Well, I hope. Excuse me. And a story that we've covered extensively here on the show.
We have.
From the first time that Alex was taken to the emergency room by his mother and chained to a bed for 13 days naked because they couldn't figure out what to do with his challenging behavior, to the point where Alex was killed by his mother and his caretaker.
Yeah. And she is now charged with manslaughter or murder.
Yes.
And so very controversial, a controversial man on a controversial topic. He's doing a documentary on this. So many sides to this. We're so quick to judge in our culture without really understanding the ramifications. So I hope we're going to have a really thoughtful discussion next week, right?
Absolutely. And we encourage your thoughts and
write
questions.
us your thoughts, you know.
Absolutely.
Write us your thoughts, you know. I mean, some of you are probably going to be up in arms about Dr. Wakefield being here.
But it's important, you know, that we talk about these things, and because that's what we're here for, news and information. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today, but I want to thank both of our guests, and thank you, Nancy.
Wonderful
this has been a wonderful
Thank you,
hour
Shannon.
We'll be back tomorrow, and until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.